I went into treatment and it was real weird for me. For the first 3 weeks, I was not allowed to speak. I couldn't express myself. Everybody just told me to be quiet. The first week was awful. Every night I would sweat. I couldn't sleep. I was having withdrawals. Every night I was so sweaty I had to change my clothes. And this was from the alcohol being in my system coming out through my pores. It was not fun. It was awful. Every now and then I would wake up and I was lost. I had no idea where I was. I had to remind myself I was in therapy, I was in a hospital, I was alright. Finally, in the third week, I was allowed to participate. And I was like, hello, my name's Bobby. I felt really awkward. When the first time I raised my hand in the first week, they told me to be quiet. So it was just weird. We went to AA meetings on the campus, and occasionally it was off campus, and it was fine. But there was a wide variety of people, very diverse group, regards to age and gender. Found myself comparing myself to other people. You know, some people I thought were worse off than me, some people were better. Some people had been there for a few months or even years. But regardless, the one thing we had in common was that we were alcoholics. The first step was to admit that, our lives were no longer manageable. After the month of going to meetings, they told us to go to meetings at a halfway house. There were about 14 men living in the halfway house that I went to. There was an interpreter provided. I went to this halfway house, but there was only one interpreter, and they interpreted one class a week. However, I was really determined. I didn't let that lack of interpreter to stop me. I wanted to leave my past life behind me, so if there wasn't an interpreter there, I decided it was not going to matter. I was going to go to these meetings anyway. I used to set up the coffee. I didn't drink coffee, but I set it up for them, and I set up the coffee and the tables and chairs for them. There were a few different meetings, and I went to sometimes 2 or 3, 4 meetings a day. It was hard without an interpreter for me to understand, but I made it work. I felt safe there, so I went. I had no temptations when I was there. I didn't want alcohol in my life anymore. I kept going to these meetings. We had a book there called The Big Book, and I'd figure out what chapter we were on, and I'd read it. I sat in front of the class so I could try to catch on to what the presenter was going over. I went to Alcohol Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and CDA as well. I applied for a sponsor, and I really wasn't crazy about the first one that I got. The second one that I got, I was still difficult. Both my sponsors were hearing. The communication was just difficult. We tried different modes of communication, and it was really hard to connect. So I had a few different sponsors for this reason. Both of them were really hard on me. They preached at me several times, telling me which steps I needed to do, and when I got past the first 2 steps, I was on step 3 and I got stuck. It was about giving my life to God, and I didn't know who God was. I didn't know how I was going to give my life to God, so I just skipped that step, just moved on. They weren't thrilled about it, but I skipped about it. I skipped it anyway, and I went all the way to step 10. And then finally I realized this isn't complete. I need to go back to step 3. Even though several people told me I needed to complete it at the time, I ignored them, but I'm glad I realized it and went back to step 3. After that, I continued to go to meetings and I started to notice some change. It was a slow change, it definitely wasn't a quick change. It was a process. I had several feelings where I wanted to go to a bar and start drinking, but if I started drinking again, that was a death sentence to me. When I went to the doctor told me that I was susceptible to a liver disease. I don't remember what the name was. And he told me if I don't get help within the next few months, I could die. And that was a reality check for me. It was really alarming. I couldn't get a liver transplant. I was very serious about changing. I had several temptations. I'd go to a bar and sit there and I'd think and I'd made myself leave. I was serious about it. I was determined to get better. I can't go back to that life. I had, issues with the communication process, but I didn't let that get in the way. Tomorrow's a different story, but today I'm sober. It was one day at a time, and then, a couple years passed. It wasn't a quick process. Definitely not. I went to several meetings, between 2 and 3 meetings a day. And of all the people I met, finally I met somebody who was deaf, and that was great. But it does not matter if you're deaf or if you're hearing. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we are all the same. We need to be a supportive community. One of the days that I was there, I tried coffee, and it was awful. I still don't like coffee. But I always went to these meetings, and I wanted to continue this process. I wanted to leave my alcoholic life behind me. And even though there were slow improvements, it took me 22 years to become sober. I'm feeling pretty good about it. And like I said, it's definitely not an easy process. Once in a while, there are going to be those temptations. There are several different, stressors that I've had in my life. Money problems, family, economy, you know, all of these problems can even affect me, but I don't want to relapse. If I drink again, that will kill me. I don't want to go back to that life. I want to live my life and enjoy it sober and clean. And now it's important for me to help other people and help them realize that we're the same. I look back 22 years ago and realized how many people helped me, and that really inspired me to help others. And that's what AA did for me. I want to help connect with other people and encourage them to become sober. And even helping them, in a positive way that affects me positively as well. This isn't a lucky experience for me. It's not just all luck. I got a lot of help from God in AA. It's my job now to help others become clean. They need to rid themselves of alcohol, and I need to help them. Of course, it gets better every day, and no, I'm not perfect, but it gets better every day. And if I keep thinking positively and follow all these steps one at a time, I'm always bound to improve.